When I was in high school, the boy I had secretly loved for 3 years, Thomas, confessed his feelings to me. Just as I was about to say yes, my sister sneered, "You don't actually believe him, do you? With your 150-pound body, do you have no self-awareness?" Embarrassed, I turned to leave. But Thomas said, "I like you. It has nothing to do with how you look." And I believed him. But later, I caught him and my sister making out passionately under a tree. I didn't say a word. I just left with my father to the north. 8 years later, we met again at a high school reunion. I had lost all the weight. Thomas pushed through the crowd to find me. "Can we talk?" he asked. I glanced at the calm, composed man standing behind him, then shook my head with a smile. "No need. My husband would get jealous." I heard Colleen's coming to the reunion. Didn't she never attend these things before? Maybe she regrets it, seeing Thomas and her sister getting engaged. What's there to regret? Everyone knows Thomas only confessed to her out of spite after fighting with her sister. And let's be real, she was fat as a pig. Like Thomas would ever actually like her. My hand paused on the door handle. For the past 8 years, Thomas's confession had always been used as a joke. Even my own mother used it to humiliate me. "Have you looked in the mirror? Thomas is handsome, smart, comes from a good family, why would he ever like you? He said he liked you and you believed him." When I didn't respond, she went on, "I'm warning you, stop having those little thoughts of yours. He and your sister were made for each other. They'll get married sooner or later. You need to give up." That's when I found out Thomas and my sister Mary were dating. Apparently, everyone knew. Everyone but me. But Mary was proud and stubborn, and so was Thomas. They fought constantly, neither willing to back down. The day Thomas confessed to me, the two of them had just had their biggest fight yet. He'd shouted, "I'd rather date a pig than get back together with Mary." Mary had sneered, "Then go date Colleen." What she didn't expect, was that Thomas really would confess to me. What she couldn't believe, was that I actually believed him. For 1 month, Thomas was nothing but gentle and sweet. He bought me breakfast, brought me brown sugar water during my period, and even tutored me in schoolwork. I believed, deep down in my heart, that he truly liked me. The truth came out on a bright and sunny Sunday. I had just finished my homework and was staring out the window. That's when I saw them, Thomas and Mary, kissing passionately under a big tree. I watched for a moment in silence. Then I picked up my phone and dialed his number. Under the tree, I saw Thomas hastily push Mary away before answering, pretending nothing was wrong. "What's up?" he said casually. "Thomas," I said calmly, "let's break up." When my mom found out I was going to the north with Dad, I was packing my things. She stormed in and dumped everything I'd just packed onto the floor. Like a madwoman, she screamed at me, calling me ungrateful. "I raised you all these years, and you just leave? Why didn't you go with him when we divorced?" Mary added fuel to the fire from the side. "Mom, I told you. She never wanted to take your last name. She's always had her own agenda." Before she could finish, Mom snapped, "What agenda could she have? She thinks she can live a good life following that useless father of hers?" Back when they divorced, Mom insisted on keeping both kids. But in reality, her eyes were only ever on Mary. The good food, Mary got it first. Pretty dresses, Mary got first pick. The only time I got anything was during meals. After they had eaten their fill, the leftovers were pushed in front of me. "Don't waste food," she'd say. "Finish all of it." Over time, I kept gaining weight. And the more weight I gained, the more disgusted she became. "Same parents, how do you end up looking so different? I should have never given birth to you. You're a disgrace." From the very beginning, she favored Mary. Mary was beautiful, got good grades, and most importantly, she could sing, dance, and was sweet-tongued. I was just a bookworm. Rigid, boring, and fat. Nobody wanted to be my friend. Thomas was the first classmate who ever approached me. For a time, I truly believed he was my salvation. But later, he left me waiting in the pouring rain. He had asked me to meet him on the track after school. I waited until evening classes started, and he still didn't show. When I got home, I found out Mary had twisted her ankle. It was Thomas who carried her all the way home. When I walked in, he was crouched in front of her, gently applying medicine. He was so focused, he didn't even notice I had come in. Mary noticed me standing there and immediately put on her pitiful expression. Thomas only helped me because I was hurt and looked pathetic. "You don't mind, do you?" I said nothing. Her eyes began to well up again. "I'm sorry, next time I get injured, I won't bother Thomas again." Mom walked out of the room and saw Mary's teary face. She didn't even ask what happened before grabbing me by the arm and dragging me into the room, yelling at me like a lunatic. "If you hadn't been clinging to Thomas every day, your sister wouldn't have gotten hurt on the way home alone. Open your eyes and look at Thomas, his eyes are full of your sister. You really believed he liked you? He was just messing with you." From now on, you're not allowed to have anything to do with Thomas. Do you hear me? I stared at her blankly. But, it was Thomas who confessed to me. They're just a young couple having a spat, and you bought it. She looked me up and down with obvious disdain. Look at yourself, then look at your sister, even a blind man wouldn't choose you. I don't remember how I walked out of that room. I just remember that the moment I opened the door, I saw my dad, breathless and rushing toward me. And at that moment, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. After learning the whole story, my dad was livid, his face dark with fury, and he exploded. He ignored Mom's attempts to stop him, took my hand, and left with me without ever looking back. That departure lasted 8 years. Not long ago, they called us. They said Thomas and Mary were getting married. It was Mary who called. Colleen, you and Dad should come back for my wedding. It won't be complete without you. I was silent for a long time before answering, okay. Hey, are you here for the class reunion too? Why haven't you gone in? The voice pulled me out of my thoughts. I nodded. She pushed open the door as she walked inside. I don't recognize you. What's your name? Colleen, I replied. She suddenly froze in place and turned around, wide-eyed. Wait, did you just say you're Colleen? Her voice was so loud that everyone inside the private room turned to look. There were stunned expressions. Confused ones. And skeptical ones. Under all their gazes, I walked in calmly and greeted everyone. Finally, someone recognized me and came forward excitedly, pulling me toward an empty seat. Colleen. I'm Heather, your old desk mate, do you still remember me? When I confirmed I did, she clung to my arm and gave me a once-over, her face full of amazement. Oh my God, how did you become so pretty? Look at that face, like a goddess. And that waist, it's half the size of mine. Tell me your weight loss secrets. Before she could finish, another female classmate cut in. Heather, are you dumb? She didn't look like this before. She obviously had some work done. Colleen, you didn't get plastic surgery, did you? Must have cost a fortune to look like that. I smiled faintly and replied, thanks for the compliments. She frowned. When did I compliment you? You said I'm good-looking. And rich. That's definitely a compliment. The room fell into another awkward silence. After a few seconds, one of the guys tried to break the ice. But before he could finish, the door opened again. Thomas and Mary walked in, one after the other. 8 years had passed. Thomas was no longer the youthful boy I remembered, he was calm and reserved now. Mary was still as lively as ever, immediately blending in with the crowd and chatting enthusiastically. Then someone mentioned me. Hey Mary, your sister's here too. Mary looked confused. Which sister? Colleen. Recognition dawned on her. She glanced around the room and replied carelessly, she said she might come, but I doubt it. She's right here. The classmate pointed straight at me. There, that's her. Mary and Thomas turned toward me in unison. The lighting was dim, I couldn't make out their expressions. But I could see both of them freeze in place. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10. A full 30 seconds passed before Mary snapped out of it. She stood up and quickly walked over to me. Colleen. I gave a soft, polite Mary forced a smile, her tone dripping with false sweetness. No wonder you haven't come back all these years, you were busy hiding out, getting work done, huh? But I must say, you really do look more like my sister now. Someone snickered, she probably used your face as the blueprint. Back when I was overweight, people used to say I somewhat resembled Mary. Now that I'd slimmed down, the resemblance was even more striking. So after that comment, people began looking at me in a strange way. Heather suddenly said, are you guys blind? Colleen is clearly prettier. Honestly, the one thing worse than a bad personality is jealousy. Mary's face turned red with anger. What are you implying? Why would I be jealous of her? Because she's thinner, and better looking than you now. Haha. You. Mary was speechless for a second, but she quickly regained her composure. My bridesmaids aren't finalized yet. Colleen, why don't you be one of them? I gave her a regretful smile. I'm married. Mary frowned. How come I haven't heard about that? We got our marriage certificate today. Haven't had time to announce it yet. Heather's eyes sparkled. No way, really? Where's your husband tonight? Before I could answer, the classmate who had mocked me earlier jumped back in. And you guys actually believe her? Look at her, after all that surgery, isn't it obvious? Someone asked, obvious about what? She knows Thomas likes Mary. So she made herself look like Mary, just to get back together with him. I looked at her calmly. I really am married. The certificate is in my bag. She scoffed. Look at that. She even forged a marriage certificate. Isn't her motive obvious now? The others exchanged uncertain looks. I didn't want to explain anything further. I stood up and excused myself. Carry on. I need to use the restroom. After tidying myself up, I noticed I had one unread message on my phone. Wifey, I'm here. Where are you? I smiled. On my way. On my way back from the restroom, I passed by a resting lounge. The door was ajar. I glanced inside without thinking, and saw Mary, red-eyed, clutching Thomas's sleeve. I won't let you go, find Colleen. Thomas's expression darkened. Can you not be so unreasonable? Then promise me, you won't meet Colleen alone. I just stepped out to have a smoke. Tears welled up in her voice. Colleen walks out, and you follow right after. If I hadn't chased you down, would you be trying to rekindle your old flame right now? Thomas looked tired. I told you, there's nothing between us. Why can't you believe that? Mary sobbed like she was the victim. You watched her the whole time. When you heard she was married, you nearly crushed your glass in your hand. Thomas, you clearly haven't moved on. It's been 8 years. You never stopped looking for her. Are you seriously telling me she's not still in your heart? Enough, Thomas cut her off coldly. If you want to make a scene and let everyone know, go ahead and scream. I didn't bother listening anymore. Back in the private room, I looked around but didn't see that familiar figure. Heather tugged me into a seat. Colleen, guess who just showed up? Who? Daniel. I froze. Then she added, dreamily, I can't believe he came tonight. I swear, now that I've seen that god-tier face again, I can die without regrets. I laughed at her over-the-top reaction. It's not that serious. It is. You'll see, just wait. As she spoke, the door opened. Thomas walked in alone, no sign of Mary. And then, a tall, lazy-looking man strolled in behind him. It was Daniel. Our eyes met. I stood up and walked toward him, but Thomas stepped into my path. Colleen. Let's talk. Instinctively, I glanced at Daniel. He leaned against the door with a teasing smile and gave me a wink. After 5 years together, I knew him far too well. Whenever something amused him, he'd give me that exact look. When I didn't move, he pulled out his phone and typed quickly. A message popped up on my screen, go talk to him. Reluctantly, I asked Thomas, what do you want to talk about? Let's go outside. Another message came through from Daniel, go with him. I pretended not to see it and tucked my phone away. Then I looked at Thomas and said, no, thanks. My husband would get jealous. Daniel might act easygoing, but he absolutely kept score. Last time I followed his advice and had a drink with one of his friends, he'd ended up punishing me by taking me in every corner of our apartment that night. The memory still made my skin tingle. Just as I turned to walk toward Daniel, a hand grabbed my wrist, firm, urgent, and yanked me out of the room into the stairwell. I yanked my hand free, wincing in pain. Thomas, what the hell is wrong with you? Sorry, I just wanted to talk to you alone. He said sorry, but I didn't hear a shred of apology in his tone. There's nothing for us to talk about. My voice was sharp. Thomas pressed his lips together. I just wanted to ask how you've been these years. I've been doing well. All these years, I've been trying to find you. I asked around, but no one could reach you. Where did you go? I didn't answer. When I left, I only deleted Thomas's contact. I still had everyone else's. Yet in all this time, I never got a single call. Not even an email. Colleen, back then? I was truly. Colleen. Heather poked her head in through the stairwell door, her eyes gleaming with mischief. We're heading to the next stop. You coming? I turned at once. Let's go. As we walked away, Heather leaned in and whispered, what did Thomas want? I shook my head. How did you know I was in there? Heather grinned. Guess what, Daniel told me. Oh my God, Daniel talked to me. Like, initiated. In the elevator, she kept chattering about how much she adored Daniel. After a moment's thought, I decided to tell her the truth. Heather, actually? Daniel is my husband. Heather waved it off. Girl, I know. We all used to pretend Daniel was our husband. I'm serious. We got our marriage certificate today. I pulled out the document and showed it to her. I expected her to be shocked, maybe even a little disappointed. But after a brief pause, her face lit up with joy. Oh my God. You finally did something for yourself. She held the certificate like it was a golden trophy and laughed out loud. I've always wondered, what kind of woman could actually be good enough for Daniel? Now I know. It's you. Colleen, you and Daniel are perfect together. I made a small sound, suddenly a little shy. I thought you'd say I wasn't good enough for him. Heather stopped laughing. She looked at me seriously. You're amazing, Colleen. You've always been amazing. Not just Daniel, anyone better than Daniel would still be lucky to have you. My eyes stung with unshed tears. Thank you. I mean it. Back in high school, my family was struggling. I often didn't have enough to eat. You'd sneak food into my desk drawer all the time. I was surprised. You knew? Of course. I also knew you saved your allowance to help me pay for school materials. I knew everything. Her eyes reddened. Later, when I finally made money from part-time jobs and tried to pay you back, I realized I couldn't reach you. I asked around, but those girls had all taken favors from Mary. They deleted your contact info. We sat on a bench outside, talking for a long, long time. In the end, she said, "Colleen, I'm so happy you came back. Thank you, for helping me find a good friend again." She shook her phone playfully. "We'll stay in touch now. But go home, you've got a husband waiting like a lonely statue." I looked toward the street lamp not far away. There stood Daniel, tall and calm, waiting for me under the glow of the light. I couldn't help but laugh. When we got home, the lights were still off. Daniel pinned me straight against the door. "He touched your hand today. Look at that, accusing me first. I wasn't about to lose. He dragged me out of the room right in front of you. And you didn't stop him." Daniel leaned in slowly, his familiar masculine scent wrapping around me. "I don't care. You owe me tonight." Just as he finished speaking, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. Daniel frowned. "Don't pick up." I answered anyway. The moment the call connected, her voice exploded through the speaker. "You're back in town and didn't come home first? After all these years, you went to see your classmates before seeing me? Am I dead to you? And what's this about plastic surgery? Do you even understand the meaning of 'your body is a gift from your parents'? Don't tell me you're still hung up on Thomas. Let me warn you, he's about to be your brother-in-law. Try anything, and see what happens." She kept going, sentence after sentence, every word an accusation. I pulled the phone away from my ear. When I no longer heard her yelling, I slowly brought it back. "Colleen, come home. Right now. Immediately." I hung up and looked at Daniel. He gently brushed my bangs aside. "Go. I'll come with you." I shook my head. "She's furious right now. Maybe next time." He didn't press. "If anything happens, call me. And if it ever gets to be too much, we won't go back there again." When I arrived, the house was bustling with cheer. Mary was gently stroking her belly, her voice soft and sweet. "Don't blame Thomas for not taking me home. I just found out I'm pregnant. Mom, don't say anything yet. I'll tell him when he comes to pick me up." Our mother beamed with indulgence. Okay. He's going to find out sooner or later. What matters is you two take care of each other from now on." They were chatting happily when I walked in. Mary spotted me and waved excitedly. Mom turned and, after just one look at me, her brows furrowed. "So you really went and got surgery, huh? Of all the faces you could have chosen, you had to make yourself look like your sister?" Mary quickly stepped in, linking arms with me. "Mom, Colleen finally came home. Why bring that up and ruin the mood?" She leaned in closer, smiling sweetly. "Colleen, I have great news, you're going to be an aunt." I responded with a flat gently pulling my arm away. Then I greeted my mother politely. She gave me a cold once-over, then said with a sneer, "Well, I guess you're easier on the eyes now." Just as I was about to sigh in relief, she added, "Mrs. Wang's son from downstairs just finished grad school. You should meet him. Let's get your marriage sorted too." I stared at her in disbelief. "Mom, he's 5'2" and weighs 200 pounds. You want me to marry him?" She had never thought highly of Mrs. Wang's son. Even when I was at my heaviest, she still felt he wasn't good enough for her daughter. "He's got a master's degree. And your Aunt Wang runs 2 beauty salons. Business is booming. Once you marry him, your life may not be as good as your sister's, but it won't be terrible either." Mary chimed in cheerfully, "She's right, Colleen. You didn't even take the college entrance exam, but he's got a graduate degree." Back then, when Dad took me away, it was less than a month before the exam. He fought through every obstacle to get my registration and household paperwork transferred. In the end, I had to repeat a year of school. They only knew I didn't take the exam that year. They didn't know I eventually got into my dream university. Thinking I was feeling ashamed, Mary kept going. "Mom's doing this for your own good. Just listen to her and marry him." I stared straight at her. "You didn't tell her I registered my marriage?" "Marriage," she blinked innocently. "Mom, that was just Colleen joking around." She turned to me. "Those things you say outside just to save face, don't say them in front of Mom, okay?" I said nothing. Instead, I pulled the marriage certificate from my bag and placed it on the table. "That's actually why I came back, Daniel and I just got married." Mom picked it up and opened it. "Daniel? Isn't he that top student from your high school?" "What?" Mary snatched the certificate. With just one glance, her face went pale, her breathing uneven. "No way. There's no way you married Daniel. This must be fake. Why would Daniel want you? He didn't even want me, how could he possibly want you?" The certificate crumpled in her hands. I took it back and smoothed it out calmly. "I'm married. I don't need to be set up with anyone." And with that, I turned and walked to the door. As I opened it, I ran right into Thomas, who was about to punch in the code. I walked around him and stepped out. Behind me, I heard Mary's panicked voice. "Thomas, I'm pregnant." There was a moment of silence. Then Thomas replied, "Go back inside. I forgot to lock the car." The elevator arrived. I stepped in, and Thomas followed right after. Just before the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Mary's face, full of hatred. In the elevator, it was just the two of us. He spoke first. "It's too late to catch a cab. Let me give you a ride." I declined politely. "No need. Thank you." "Colleen, are you avoiding me on purpose?" "No. You're overthinking it." The elevator doors opened. I strode out quickly. I thought he wouldn't follow, but as I stood by the road trying to hail a cab, his car pulled up beside me. "Get in. I'll drive you." I didn't move. He was persistent. When I didn't get in, he simply trailed me with his car. "It's hard to get a cab here. Come on." I watched as yet another taxi sped past without stopping. In the end, I gave in. Once I got in, I gave him my address. He frowned slightly. "This is a residential area. Did you rent a place here?" "I bought it." Thomas glanced at me instinctively. "Planning to move back for work?" "Actually, being home isn't so bad. You've got your mom around. Having family nearby is always a good thing." I didn't know if Thomas was playing dumb or really that clueless. Since the day I met him, my mother had never treated me kindly. Even in front of him, she never bothered to fake affection. There were times I even doubted whether I was her biological daughter. But unfortunately, I was. I said nothing. And Thomas, sensing my silence, stopped talking as well. When we arrived, I got out of the car. Thomas got out, too. I frowned. "Is there something else?" "I want to make sure you get home safe. Then I'll leave." "Thomas, this is really unnecessary. Besides, I'm married." He didn't budge. "I know that whole marriage thing was just an excuse." I sighed. Why did no one believe I was really married? I knew trying to explain would do no good, so I didn't bother. I entered the building and took the elevator. Thomas followed behind, not too close, not too far. As I pulled out my keys, he suddenly spoke. "Colleen, the person I liked back then was actually..." The door swung open before he could finish. A tall, handsome man reached out with long arms and effortlessly pulled me into his embrace. The moment his lips met mine, Thomas's voice growled through the hallway. "Daniel, what the hell are you doing?" But Daniel didn't stop. He deepened the kiss without hesitation. I gave him a little shove, but he didn't move an inch. Not until Thomas grabbed my arm, trying to pull me away. Daniel finally stopped, narrowed his eyes, and said, to me, not him, "Why'd you bring him home?" I turned to Thomas. "Let me introduce you. This is my husband, Daniel." Thomas's fist clenched at his side, his lips pressed into a tight line. He was about to snap. But before he could, Daniel scooped me up and carried me inside. His strong arms lifted me onto the dining table. He leaned forward, bracing himself on either side of me. "I'm mad," he said. I slowly raised my hand and began unbuttoning his shirt. Daniel watched my fingers slip beneath his collar, and let out a helpless laugh. "What are you doing?" "I'm coaxing you." This time, Daniel genuinely laughed. He dropped into a chair and pulled me onto his lap. "All right, what guilt are you hiding? Why are you suddenly so sweet to me?" Casually, I traced his chest muscles through his shirt with my fingers. "Today's the day we got our marriage certificate, hubby. It'd be such a waste not to celebrate it properly." His Adam's apple bobbed. His voice turned deep and husky. "Fine, then talk while we do it." Honestly, I don't remember what we talked about that night. But I do remember Daniel had picked up a few new moves. Maybe it was bumping into old classmates that day, but I didn't sleep soundly that night. I dreamed of a lot of things. The year I repeated school was a hard one. The regional differences in food and lifestyle threw my body and emotions completely off. Dad had just been transferred to a new job and was so busy his feet barely touched the ground. During my lowest point, I drowned myself in the internet and wrote endless moody posts. That's when Daniel appeared. Of course, I didn't know it was him back then. I thought he was just a random stranger online. He started leaving comments. His tone was always playful and witty. At first, I only read the messages and never replied. Eventually, I began responding, mostly to argue. I'd pick his comments and lash out, cursing the world through him. But he never got angry. He always came back with another comment the next time. And just like that, we kept chatting until university started. One day, I was jogging on the track when I heard someone call my screen name. I instinctively turned around, and there he was, Daniel, walking toward me with his hands in his pockets and that signature cool smile. That's when I realized, the person I'd been chatting with for an entire year was him. Daniel had been my high school classmate. Sunny, handsome, and always top of the class. Back then, I was too insecure to even look at him properly. Even after chatting for so long, I still didn't have the courage to face him. So I ran. And how did we finally get together? Well, he started inviting me to night jogs. During that repeat year, I had already started losing a bit of weight. At 165 centimeters, I had gone down to 135 pounds. When I got into university, I began jogging daily to keep going. Daniel and I started bumping into each other on the track all the time. He'd talk to me about health, weight loss, and body composition. And chat about random things, from local snacks to global politics. Gradually, I realized I had fallen for him. By sophomore year, I had slimmed down to 102 pounds. Daniel, now in his third year, had started his own business. He could only manage to jog with me 2 nights a week. The day I decided to confess, I put on makeup, wore a cute dress, and ended up seeing Mary and Daniel arguing in front of the boys' dorm. I stood far away. I couldn't hear what they were saying. All I saw was Daniel frown and speak coldly, and Mary suddenly break down crying. When I got closer, I finally caught what Mary was saying. "I won't give up, Daniel. I will win you over." Daniel replied indifferently, "I already like someone. Since freshman year. She's the only one I've ever liked." That day, I couldn't even remember how I got back to my dorm. From that day on, I stopped jogging at night. If I saw Daniel on campus, I'd turn and walk the other way. Until one day, he cornered me outside a classroom. "Why are you avoiding me?" I stammered, unable to find an excuse. I was about to flee when he grabbed my arm. "Colleen, don't avoid me." "Why not?" Students passed us in the hallway. People stared. Daniel looked straight at me, his gaze serious. "Because I like you. Babe." "Colleen." Daniel's voice stirred me from sleep. I was completely dazed. "What's wrong?" He cupped my face like I'd just had a nightmare. "What were you dreaming about? You were crying the whole time." I touched my face, sure enough, it was wet. I pouted. "I dreamed you didn't want me anymore." Daniel blinked. "Why would I ever not want you?" He pulled me into his arms and gently patted my back like coaxing a child. "Go back to sleep. It's not even dawn yet, just rest a little longer." I curled against his chest, my arm wrapped instinctively around his firm waist, but the sleepiness had already vanished. "Daniel, when did you start liking me?" His low, magnetic voice came from above. "A long time ago. Let me think, probably during the welcome performance in our first year of high school. That dance you did." I froze. That was ages ago. I'd nearly forgotten I used to dance Latin. It was the first time I got back on stage after gaining weight. There were 5 girls in that performance. I was the heaviest one. After that dance, the silent isolation began. Daniel's eyes lit up with the memory. "You were really shining on that stage. It's a shame I never saw you dance again after that." Then again, probably for the best. No one else deserves to see it. I blinked. No one else? Who are you trying to keep it from? Daniel refused to answer. "Still can't sleep? Want to do something else?" Alarm bells rang in my head. I shut my eyes instantly and stopped talking. The phone ringing woke me up again. Daylight had already filled the room. Daniel was no longer beside me. The caller ID showed it was my mother. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Her shrill voice exploded from the speaker. "Didn't your sister ask you to go with her to try on wedding dresses? Do you know what time it is now? Why aren't you there yet?" I checked my messages. Sure enough, Mary had texted me. "But I'm not going." Her volume spiked immediately. "What did you say? You're not going? Then am I supposed to go with her? You get over there right now." I turned over. "I'm not going." "You're unbelievable. If you don't show up today, don't bother calling yourself my daughter." She hung up furiously. She had always used these kinds of threats to control me, and they always worked. She probably thought they still would. But this time, she was wrong. I lazed in bed a little longer before getting up to wash up. There was breakfast waiting in the microwave. Daniel had made it. I had just taken a few bites when the doorbell rang. Thinking Daniel had returned, I went to open the door, only to find Thomas standing there. I instinctively moved to shut it, but he was quicker and blocked it with his hand. "I just have one thing to say. I'll leave right after." I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" His expression was dark. "Daniel's relationship with Mary isn't clean." He held up several photos. They were taken back in college, Daniel and Mary standing outside the dorms, deep in conversation. The angles were chosen well. They looked close. I glanced at the pictures and handed them back. "These don't prove anything." I started to close the door, but Thomas stopped me again. "Colleen, do you trust him that much?" I sighed. "Do you know why I don't trust you?" "Because I was there that day, across the street from the girls' dorm. I saw it with my own eyes." So tell me, Thomas, should I trust your photos, or my own memory? His face went blank. You were there? I looked him straight in the eye. I went to that same university. Daniel and I were classmates. The color drained from Thomas's face. It was like he'd been struck by lightning. For a long while, he said nothing. Finally, he found his voice again. It sounded like he was talking to himself. So that's why I never ran into you at school. His voice trailed off, fading lower and lower, until he suddenly raised it. You lied to me. You said you'd go to the same university as me. But you ended up going with Daniel instead. No. Daniel was supposed to get into Harvard or Yale. Why would he apply to the political law university? That's impossible, it doesn't make sense. I frowned. What are you talking about? Something clearly clicked in his head. He tossed the photos and ran off. In his frantic dash, something fell from his coat. I bent down to pick it up, and froze. It was a photo of me, from that high school welcome performance. In the picture, I was dancing confidently, shining under the lights, eyes full of determination. But why would Thomas have this photo? That day, Daniel never came home. His phone went unanswered. Messages went unread. As night fell, Mary called me. Her voice was frantic. Colleen, get to the hospital quick, Daniel and Thomas got into a fight. On the way there, I couldn't figure it out. Why would those two even come to blows? Even if they did, it shouldn't have been this serious. But when I saw Daniel wrapped up like a mummy, my anger exploded. Thomas did this? Daniel looked pitiful, like a wronged little wife. It was him. Press charges. Right after I said it, Thomas walked in. He looked a mess, though the only injury I could see was a cut on the corner of his mouth. The moment he stepped inside, he barked at Daniel, "Stop making up crap. You've got a little scratch and you wrapped yourself up like a damn accident victim." Daniel weakly defended himself. I didn't. "Babe, you believe me, right? He hit me first, ow, it hurts." The moment he said, "hurts," I panicked. "Where? Do I need to get the doctor?" "No doctor. Just kiss it better." I cupped his cheeks and gave him a comforting kiss. Behind me, Thomas roared. "Colleen. Don't let him fool you. He's a total manipulative flirt. I'm way more injured than he is." "Daniel, nonsense. All you've got is that little cut." "Babe, look at my eye, it's bruised." "Daniel." Thomas nearly growled the name through gritted teeth. I turned around. "What now? If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." Thomas gritted his teeth, opened his mouth a few times to speak, but ended up stomping off and slamming the door behind him. While Daniel was in the hospital, my mom and Mary called me several times. I didn't pick up. On the day he was discharged, I was downstairs handling the paperwork when I saw Thomas and Mary arguing near the flower beds. They were shouting fiercely. In the end, Thomas turned to leave. Mary tried to pull him back, but he yanked his arm away so forcefully that she fell to the ground. I was in a rush to finish the paperwork, so I didn't pay them much attention. It wasn't until later that I found out, Mary lost the baby because of that fall. And somehow, Thomas had a paternity test done, with the already developed fetus. The result shocked everyone. The child wasn't his. Using that as a reason, Thomas called off the engagement. Heather told me all of this after I'd returned to my dad's place. When he heard that my mom had taken Mary to Thomas's house to cause a scene, he sighed deeply. "Your mother's been used to controlling everything her whole life. I doubt she'll come out of this mess unscathed." Dad really knew her well. In a desperate attempt to force the marriage, she alerted the media and used public opinion to pressure Thomas's family. Eventually, unable to bear the weight of the backlash, they gave in and agreed to the engagement. At the time, I was busy preparing my wedding with Daniel. It was March, springtime, but snow fell unexpectedly. Daniel had gone out early that morning. I was holding a warm cup of water, admiring the snowy scene outside the window, when I saw Thomas. No idea how long he had been standing there, his hair was covered in snow. Dad came over and said, "Go talk to him. Clear things up. We don't want Daniel misunderstanding." I wrapped myself in a thick down coat and headed downstairs. As I got closer, I saw cigarette butts scattered all around his feet. He was holding one last lit cigarette between his fingers. When he saw me, he immediately threw it down and stammered, "I don't smoke often. Go home." I looked at his hands, red from the cold. "You don't belong here." He tried to hide his hands behind his back. "I'm fine. If you can handle it, so can I. I'm getting married. The wedding's early next month." He forced a smile, one that looked more painful than crying. "See, congratulations." I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. "Colleen, just if, I had admitted back then that the love letter was for you, would we be happy together now?" His words sent me reeling into memory. Back in our first year, Thomas had handed me a love letter. No name, no clear recipient, but I knew it was meant for me. Then someone read it out loud in public. The entire room burst into laughter. Who the hell would write a love letter to that fat pig? Ha ha ha. Wait, this handwriting kind of looks like Thomas's. No way. Thomas? Her? Get out of here. Thomas has standards. Maybe it was for Mary? She danced at the welcome event too. I stood frozen, surrounded by ridicule, silently begging Thomas for help. He hesitated for a moment, then loudly declared, it was for Mary. I just asked Colleen to pass it on. In that moment, I felt like I was stranded on a deserted island. But then, a strong hand grabbed mine and pulled me out of that crowd. Daniel's voice pulled me back to the present. If, back then, I had been the one who took you away instead of Daniel, would everything have been different? It would have, I said. Even if you had pulled me away that day, we wouldn't have lasted. Because to you, pride is more important than love. Your so-called sense of shame. When he looked up again, his eyes were rimmed red. But in the end, didn't you still agree to be with me? I won't deny it, I said honestly. Back then, I was too young to make rational decisions. I thought liking someone meant we had to be together. It wasn't until I met Daniel that I realized liking someone was just the beginning. But Thomas interpreted my words another way. He stepped forward, slightly frantic. So you still like me, right? I shook my head firmly. I'm just not denying who I used to be. No matter how imperfect she was still a part of me. I did like you when I was younger. But the person I love now is Daniel. Go home. You'll never get used to the weather here. That night, it snowed again. By morning, the world outside the window was blanketed in white. The parking spot where Thomas's car had been was now empty. Dad told me, it drove off right at dawn. At our wedding, I invited Heather to be my bridesmaid. It was held in Chingcheng. I invited a few close friends. Daniel's college roommates all came. After a few rounds of drinks, one tall guy clung to Daniel's shoulder, laughing nonstop. I finally get it. No wonder Daniel was out running every night like he was possessed. One look at the bride now, he wasn't possessed, he was in love. Everyone burst into laughter. Someone else chimed in, you don't even know the half of it. I also know about the little pink notebook on his desk. He trailed off. The others urged him, don't stop now. What pink notebook? The guy took another swig. It was Colleen's diary. What? How do you know it was a diary? Because, I read it. I always wondered why Daniel gave up Harvard or Yale to come to our university. Turns out he was chasing after her. I used to have a pink diary filled with my thoughts and dreams. Shortly after I wrote my ideal college in it, the diary disappeared. I never expected. Daniel had it all along. After the banquet, we returned home. Daniel was a little drunk, but still well behaved. While I ran him a bath, he sat obediently on the sofa, calling out for me every few seconds. I finally cupped his face and sighed. How did you get this drunk? Wife. I'm so happy. HM? What's made you so happy? I fell for you the moment I first saw you. I liked you for a long, long time. And then you said you didn't want a relationship because you wanted to focus on school? I was heartbroken for months. I raised an eyebrow. That happened? I honestly couldn't remember. Yes. But you're such a little liar. You ended up dating Thomas. For like, a month. A month is too long. I need compensation. I humored him. What kind of compensation? He didn't even hesitate. You bathe me. Fine. I suspected he was pretending to be drunk. Because halfway through the bath, he ended up bathing me. It lasted a full 3 hours. Never spoil a man. Seriously.